Lightsaber duels are to a great deal of fans the highlight of any Star Wars project, and some of the most emotional and underrated fights in the entire saga can be found in Star Wars Rebels. Short fights, long fights, red fights, blue fights, and each with a varying amount of lightsaber clashes, which is exactly what we'll be going over today. What's going on, guys? My name is Danny, and today we'll be ranking every duel from Star Wars Rebels based on the amount of times the blades clash together. Now, just to set some ground rules for this clash count, I will only be considering lightsaber blade on lightsaber blade fights in this ranking. That means that I will not be counting shots from Ezra's blaster saber as lightsaber clashes. I am only counting the times lightsabers are either visibly clashing on screen, or if off screen, the number of times we hear the clash sound. A lightsaber lock only counts as 1, and if multiple lightsabers are locked together like this, I'm counting this as 2. And if this happens, we will get there when we get there. And with that being said, let's see who today's big loser is. Last place on this list goes to Ahsoka, Kanan, and Ezra versus the 8th brother from Season 2, Episode 21, with a measly single clash. Now, this is the first of many entries from this episode, as you'll soon come to find out, but this little kerfuffle is the least of them. 19th place in this list goes to what I consider to be one of the greatest duels in all of Star Wars, and that is Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth Maul in Season 3, Episode 20. Now, even though this duel only contains 2 clashes, the real reason this fight is so incredible is because of everything that comes before. This may not be a flashy duel, but it's certainly one of the most impactful. 18th place in this list goes to Ezra versus the 7th sister and 5th brother from Season 2, Episode 5. This duel is our wonderful introduction to these new Inquisitors, and they make a decent first impression, I guess. They bring the clash count up to 3 clashes, but not before the 7th sister can catch a case with Ezra.
You and I are gonna have a talk, and if you're good, maybe some of your friends will survive.
What the f? Next up, we have another fight from Season 2, Episode 21. Maul and Ezra versus the 8th brother. This duel totals up to 4 clashes. Very short and sweet, nothing really to say about it. Now we have our first tie on this list. Another fight from Season 2, Episode 21. Maul and Ezra versus the 7th sister, as well as Darth Vader versus Ezra Bridger in Season 2, Episode 22. Both of these short but entertaining duels contain 7 clashes. Next we have another tie. The Grand Inquisitor versus Kanan in Season 1, Episode 13, and oh boy. Kanan, Ahsoka, and Maul versus the 7th sister, 5th brother, and 8th brother from Season 2, Episode 21. Now, even though this second fight has one of the biggest matchups of any duel in the saga, it still finds itself on the bottom end of this list. Both of these duels contain only 8 clashes, but nevertheless, both of these are some of my favorites from their respective seasons. 14th place in this list goes to Darth Vader versus Ezra and Kanan in Season 2, Episode 2. Vader really has some great fights in this show. In this 11 clash duel, Vader throws these two around like ragdolls while barely even trying. Our protagonists only barely managed to escape after unsuccessfully attempting to crush Vader with an AT-ST. 13th place in this list is another tie, with one of these fights being pretty interesting. To start with the more normal fight here, Ahsoka and Kanan versus the 5th brother, 8th brother, and 7th sister from Season 2, Episode 21 is a pretty standard duel from this episode, totaling up to 14 clashes. However, the other fight here is kinda weird. The 5th brother and 7th sister versus the Temple Guards in Season 2, Episode 18. Now honestly, I'm really not sure how to count this in our clash counter, but I decided to count each Temple Guard as 1 clash, with an additional 4 clashes from the Inquisitors before they get engulfed in the swarm of yellow lightsabers. So I'm counting this as 14 clashes, but honestly, I don't know, let's just move past it. Next up, we have Ahsoka and Kanan versus Maul in Season 2, Episode 21. Are you getting tired of hearing about Season 2, Episode 21 yet? After Maul pulls a fast one on Kanan, Ahsoka manages to get 12 hits in on Maul. But Kanan, despite being blind now, manages to pick himself back up and deal an additional 4 hits, bringing the clash count to 16 before Maul falls off a cliff. Time for another tie. 11th place belongs to Kanan and Ezra's training scene from Season 2, Episode 20, as well as Sabine versus Gar Saxon from Season 3, Episode 15. The training scene with Kanan and Ezra is pretty cool. We get to see the lightsabers set to training mode, which gives them a slightly different appearance and sound. On the other hand, the fight with Sabine and Gar Saxon sees the darksaber in action again. This fight reminds me a lot of Maul's fight with Pre Vizsla in the Clone Wars, with both fights containing a lot of Mandalorian attacks. Both this duel and the training scene total up to 17 clashes. Now beginning our final 10 on this list, we come to some more Grand Inquisitor fights, with this one being one of my favorites. His duel with Kanan in Season 1, Episode 9 features a lot of monologuing and a surprising amount of Phrynox, these little guys. This fight totals up to 18 clashes before Ezra summons a really big Phrynox to harass the Grand Inquisitor. Ninth place will be a tie between two of my favorite fights in the series. Season 1, Episode 5 sees our introduction to the Grand Inquisitor, and what a great first impression. After being lured into thinking they would find Luminara and Dooley, Kanan and Ezra soon find out it's a trap, coming face to face with this guy with a really cool lightsaber. Man, this would make for some great merchandise. Kanan brings the clash counter up to 23, and our protagonists are able to barely make it out with their lives. Actually, scratch that, 24 clashes. The other fight in the 9th place spot goes to Maul and Ezra versus Sabine and Kanan while they were possessed with Night Sister magic in Season 3, Episode 11. Maul and Ezra get an initial 16 clashes against Sabine and Kanan, but then Maul gets really mad and just leaves. What a fucking idiot. Ezra then gets 4 hits on Sabine before bringing her back, and then another 4 on Kanan, once again totaling up to 24 clashes. Next up we have Kanan versus the Temple Guards in Season 2, Episode 18. This fight, we get to see Kanan grapple with his status as Ezra's master, and the fight ends with Kanan being knighted in the Jedi Order. Kanan racks up 25 clashes against these guys. Also, one of them is apparently the Grand Inquisitor. I love this guy. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our final fight from Season 2, Episode 21. Kanan, Ahsoka, and Maul versus the 8th brother and 5th brother. Ahsoka and Kanan start off pretty strong against the two Inquisitors, but Maul jumps in and brings the clash count up to a respectable 27 clashes. Also, shout out to Season 2, Episode 21. 28% of this list is from this episode, and 36% of this list is from this arc. Anyway, next we have Kanan and Ezra versus the 5th brother and the 7th sister in Season 2, Episode 18. It's really cool to see Kanan and Ezra fighting side by side here. Ezra is finally holding his own in combat at this point in the show. Him and his master are able to take this duel up to 28 clashes before making a nosedive off of a cliff. If I had a nickel for every time somebody fell off a cliff in Rebels, I'd have 2 nickels.
Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
5th place on our clash count goes to Kanan versus the Grand Inquisitor in Ezra's Force Vision from Season 1, Episode 10. This creepy duel totals up to 35 clashes and features the Grand Inquisitor giving Kanan some wild stomach pain. Poor guy falls off a cliff after this. 3 nickels. And now we have our final fight from Season 1 on this list. Kanan and Ezra versus the Grand Inquisitor in Season 1, Episode 15. For a season finale, this is a pretty great fight. The Grand Inquisitor is able to take Ezra out pretty quickly, but Kanan locks the hell in and finally takes down the fallen Temple Guard. This fight totals up to 39 clashes, followed by one of the most haunting lines in all of Star Wars.
There are some things far more frightening than death.
3rd place goes to Kanan and Ahsoka versus the 5th brother and 7th sister in Season 2, Episode 10. Kanan manages to get a total of 22 clashes against the Inquisitors, but then Ahsoka pulls up with one of the coolest entrances ever. This fight really just shows how strong she is. She racks up 30 clashes before shutting off her lightsabers and ending this fight with her bare hands. This duel concludes with 52 clashes. A significant jump up from the previous entries. Just beating out the last fight, and our runner-up on this list will be Kanan and Sabine's training scene from Season 3, Episode 15. Here Sabine learns how to use the darksaber, a weapon forged in Mandalorian history. This scene is quite different from the one we saw with Ezra back in Season 2. Kanan has grown quite a bit since then, and his abilities as a master are a lot more refined. Ending with 55 clashes, Kanan tests Sabine physically and mentally in this duel, which makes for a surprisingly emotional and memorable scene. And the lightsaber duel with the most clashes in Star Wars Rebels is, coincidentally, the best duel in Star Wars Rebels. Ahsoka versus Darth Vader in Season 2, Episode 22, and Season 4, Episode 13. Yeah, this one is technically in 2 seasons because of all that World Between Worlds stuff, which I have some strong opinions on. But that's a topic for another time. This is one of the most gut-wrenching duels in all of Star Wars. It gives me chills every time I watch it, and I think most people would say the same. Ahsoka seeing what her former master had become post-Order 66 is heartbreaking, and vowing to avenge the death of the man she knew so long ago, she clashes blades with Vader 48 times before falling off of a cliff. Okay, this is getting ridiculous. Ahsoka comes running back to this fight, slashing Vader's mask open, revealing the man inside.
Ahsoka.
This scene was so insane, they basically copied it bar for bar in Kenobi. These two then deal out another 28 clashes with each other. But then Ezra reaches out from beyond time and space and saves Ahsoka. This incredible fight totals up to 76 lightsaber clashes. And man, I'm so happy this one took first place. This fight is so good. And that concludes our clash count for Star Wars Rebels. Did I miss any fights? Probably. Let me know in the comments. If you haven't already, go check out my clash counts for the Clone Wars and Skywalker Saga films as well. I think they're pretty solid. And if you'd like to see videos like this for any other shows in Star Wars, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And as always, my friends, may the Force be with you, and I'll catch you on the flip side.